Okay, so you've gotten your first client and now you're not sure whether you should be using Facebook ads or Google ads to deliver the service for them. Well, in today's video, I'm going to teach you the differences between Facebook ads and Google ads and which one you should be using for what client. And you may end up finding you need to use both, but you can work out exactly when you need to do that. And I'm going to do it in a way that's simple so anyone can understand. So for those who don't know who I am, my name is Jimmy. Everyone calls me Uncle Jimmy. And I've been running my agency now, my online guy, for over 8 years. And I've literally helped hundreds of agency owners sustainably scale their agencies and learn to deliver the services that they promise to their clients. All right, so let's get straight into the meat of today and teaching you guys how to tell the difference and work out which one you need to do for your clients. So just an FYI, if anyone's curious, this has actually come out of my Google Ads course. This is one of the foundations module, and it's very important to understand because a lot of people just skim over this. But you really need to know which one's going to work for what client, because if you don't, you may end up getting them no results. All right, so Facebook or Google ads. You really need to understand how your potential audience is going to discover your client to decide which platform to use. There are really two main things you need to consider. Are the outcomes or results affected by intangibles of the person that they are working with? And how long does it take for them to make a decision? So let's break those down a little bit. So what I mean by the first one is, if you have a client and they are working with a specific niche where the niche really determines if someone's successful or not successful by intangibles. An intangible, for an example, is maybe the way someone communicates. So let's say it's a real estate agent and they communicate really well. Someone could make extra money on their home if they're selling it, if the person that's selling it is really good at communicating. That's an intangible because you can't put a price figure on that, as opposed to a tangible, which is something like, does the person show up on time? Because if they show up on time, the job will get done. So you need to determine if the results are affected by intangibles or not. And that's the first thing you need to do. And then the second thing you need to do is really work out how long it takes for a customer to make a decision, because the decision-making cycle and the consideration cycle is super important to determine whether you use Facebook ads or Google ads. And we're going to talk about that in a second, but ultimately, it isn't always an either or solution. Many businesses will benefit from using both platforms in a complementary way. And this is what I find a lot of people ask me, do I need to learn Google ads or Facebook ads? And I tell them, look, if you want to be a well-rounded agency, you need to learn both, because in the life cycle of your client, you'll probably end up selling them both. Both generally complement each other in different ways, and they do different things for most clients. So it's always good to learn both, but you do need a starting point, right? And this is where I'm about to cover that off. All right, so let's try and explain this through a few examples. So the first example I've got here is real estate agent. The thing is with the real estate agent is that all good real estate agents will eventually sell your home, right? The demand is coming from the market. There's always people looking for homes. What decides how much you get for your home is actually intangible. So we mentioned that before, right? You've got a real estate agent and they're both got the license. They're both qualified to do the job. What makes it possible for one to make more money than the other? It's intangibles. Things like, does one of those real estate agents leave cookies out at home opens? Do they call potential leads after? Do they put the signs on the corners during a home opens? Things like that. Do they communicate well? Are they funny? The more intangibles that affect the outcome, the more people will look for a referral. And this is a huge concept to understand. Referrals generally lead to people wanting to use Facebook. And I'll cover that off in a second. But remember, intangibles are things that can't be measured. So you can't measure that if you put 5 cookies out, you'll make $5,000 more for your house. You can't measure that if someone calls up 10 leads afterwards, you'll get $5,000 more for your home. That's what I mean by that. So now we understand that concept. Let's talk about the typical client journey when it comes to finding a real estate agent. So the journey starts about thinking of selling your home. The thinking is a very important part of this, and we'll talk about that in a second. Generally, what they'll do is they'll ask their friends or family for a referral. They'll ask their brick and mortar social network. They'll ask their digital social network. They may discover someone organically through like signage or bus stops or hearing a radio ad or something like that. And the last thing they do is Google and search for someone. And this is why Facebook ads work well for real estate agents and Google ads don't work as well. Facebook ads can interrupt anywhere in that journey, whereas Google ads, you can only really show up for search. And this is a big thing to think about, right? So if your client has a lot of intangibles that make a difference, like I said, a good real estate agent is very hard to quantify. but may make you way more money. So it's worth taking the time and effort to look for a good real estate agent, which is a bunch of intangibles. Do they leave cookies out? Things like that. So generally when people are looking for intangibles in a service, they generally ask other people to give their experience because it's a way of qualifying those intangibles. So for instance, let's say a friend of mine asks if I know a good real estate agent, and I do, I'll be like, oh yeah, go and use Michael. He's really good because he just got us more because he was just out there. He was always out there. He was always friendly to the people. That's a way of qualifying intangibles. So people will generally ask their referral networks and ask others if they are looking for someone, if they're looking for a service that has intangibles. Okay. Just remember that. And like I said, Facebook ads can interrupt anywhere in that journey. So you got to think about this, right? All of this is a journey. Okay. It starts from here and then works its way down. Now, the beauty about Facebook ads specifically is that if someone starts thinking about this journey, generally your Facebook ads will start showing up for them, right? And that Facebook ad can show up there, can show up there, can show up there, can show up there, all through that journey. And you can pluck people out of that sequence anywhere as part of that. Now, with a Google ad, it's really just search. Like people have to be searching for a real estate agent for your ads to show up. So you just have more opportunities to cover people off in this user journey with Facebook ads. It's just simple. Same with Instagram ads. Same with like in any interruption based ad. And the consideration cycle for clients is also very long. So I mentioned the second thing you need to think about is consideration cycles. Basically, a consideration cycle is how long it takes for someone to make a decision. Basically, how long they consider something before they make a decision. Now, selling a home is a big decision, and sometimes people take years to decide that. This whole journey here could take 1 year, right? Now, the longer the consideration cycle is, the more chance you have of plonking your ads into that journey. Now, if this consideration cycle was like 2 days, there's just not physically as much opportunity to run ads in that sequence. So the longer the consideration cycle, the better Facebook ads works because you can basically hit them and have more touch points with them over a longer period of time. So that's the thing to consider with real estate agents. The reason Facebook ads work well is because you've got plenty of places you can put the ads that will target them over a long period of time effectively. And why Google ads still works, but doesn't work as well, is you're really capturing a very small portion of the market right at the bottom, which is at Google search. Now, that very small portion of the market is going to be good. And on the surface, Google ads look like they would work well because they're super qualified, but you're up against some pretty big players in the space, like the real estate aggregators like House and Domain and realestate.com, these big aggregators that get all of the real estate agents. That's what people are actually looking for by the time they're searching, just from my experience working with real estate agent SMMAs. Okay, so let's look at a different example here, which is a plumber. So the thing is, all plumbers will fix a broken tap. There is no such thing as a very fixed tap, right? So when we're talking about differences between tangibles and intangibles, this is starting to get to that point, right? You don't have a very fixed tap that someone will pay extra for, right? Or the outcome isn't any different if it's fixed or super fixed, because it's just not a thing. So what decides if a plumber is good or not? It's tangibles, right? So in the real estate agent space, you might get an extra 10 grand because because the real estate agent leaves cookies out. If a plumber comes and gives a cookie to a client, they're not going to pay him any extra. They're not going to make any more money. So the tangibles are things like, do they show up on time? Do they clean up after themselves? Do they get pensioner discounts? Things like that. They're physical tangibles, right? Because they can qualify it. They can go, if I show up on time to this person's home, will I make more money? Yes, because if I show up, then I can do the job, which leads to a direct ROI. So it's very tangible. So the more tangibles that affect the outcome, the more people will search for someone because they don't have to ask for referrals. You don't just go to someone and go, oh, do you know a good plumber? Yeah, there's people that do that, but most people, they will just search plumber. So let's look at a typical client journey of a plumber. So the typical client journey starts with the tap leaking, right? Let's say that's their trigger point. So before it was thinking of selling your home, here is something physically happening, like a reaction, which is a tap leaking. So generally people will ask their friends and family for a referral, maybe, or they'll just search for someone, which is the more likely situation here. And this is why Google ads works for plumbers and Facebook ads just don't work for them. Google ads marry up with a very specific intent of searching for a plumber. So let's go back to our previous example here, right? So let's say this is our consideration cycle. Facebook ads can really only target people here and here. There's less physical time, less physical space to advertise before someone makes a decision, right? And then the Google ads will obviously target that, but there's just way more volume because you don't lose people out of the funnel like you do with real estate agents, say, for instance, where there's a couple of people getting lost to referrals, a couple of people getting lost to digital referrals, Facebook groups, things like that. Here, the majority make it to search, and it's very intent driven. So if you have a tap leaking, you're going to search for someone to fix it because you just can't leave it. And that's why the consideration cycle is super short in plumbing, because if your tap is leaking, you need to get it fixed as soon as possible. Or if there's an emergency leak, you need to get it fixed as soon as possible. So our consideration cycle here might be a day, it might be hours, right? So if you're going to run Facebook ads, it's like you have to strike the ground with your lightning right on the exact right spot at the very time they open up their PC when and they might be scrolling on Facebook just as they're about to look for a plumber. Whereas with search, there's so many people going to search that you can just pluck people out of that funnel. So when the consideration cycle is smaller, Facebook ads generally have less time to work effectively. So that's why in this case, Google ads works really well for plumbers, and Facebook ads basically don't work at all. Okay, so you'll get these situations and niches where there's both tangibles and intangibles, and bathroom remodeling is a very good example of that. Is the job done on time? Is the company insured? Do they have attention to detail? Is the company easy to work with? That is a mix of both tangibles and intangibles. The job being done on time, that won't make them any money. Maybe having attention to detail will, because they'll get referred to others. So because there's both tangibles and intangibles, both Facebook and Google ads will work. Because let's look at a typical client journey for a bathroom remodeler, right? So they start by thinking about a bathroom renovation, and they might ask their friends and family for a referral. They might ask their brick and mortar social network. They might ask their digital social network, and then they might search on Google. Now, the difference between a real estate agent and a bathroom remodeler is that it's not as time sensitive, and there is less options for a referral network. Thus, they have to rely on searching on Google, right? So with our real estate agent, you are losing a lot of people here, losing lots of people here, you're losing lots of people here, and lots of people here. With bathroom remodeling, you might lose a small portion here, you might lose a small portion to this, and you might lose a small portion here, which leaves more people to search. Doesn't mean that these people aren't good. It's just there's less people physically know less bathroom remodelers, as opposed to real estate, where everyone knows a real estate agent. Now, why Facebook ads work really well, you're probably thinking, okay, most people are making it to Google. Why wouldn't I just run Google ads? The consideration time, the consideration cycle is huge on bathroom remodels. Someone might take 5 years before they decide to do a bathroom. That means all that time you can be running Facebook ads, and you can be plucking people out of this straight into your ads, out of this part of the cycle, right? The longer the consideration cycle, the better Facebook ads work. More touch points with anything outside of Google search, the better Facebook ads work. The less referrals that people that are out there, the better Google ads work. And the more tangibles there are, the better Google ads work. And the shorter the consideration time, the better Google ads work. That is the difference between the two. And that's how you decide which one you use when. Now, there is another thing to consider here, and that is blended services. So a lot of the time when you work with the client, it's not just going to be as black and white as going, okay, they're a bathroom remodeler, so I need to run Facebook ads. A lot of the time, companies that you work with or businesses you work with have a mix of services. And a good example of this is roofers, right? So you would think a roofer, like a re-roof, would be good for Facebook, right? Long consideration cycles. Generally, they're thinking about it for a long time. And there's intangibles that make a difference. Is someone going to run you through the roof? Things like that. You could potentially make more if you're a good operator. But then you take into consideration that there's other services that most roofers do, like repairing roof leaks. That has a short consideration cycle, right? If your roof is leaking, you're going to get it fixed pretty much straight away because you know it's doing damage to your roof. You might be just straight to Google and Googling roofer near me or roof repairs near me, and that has a really short consideration cycle. So Facebook ads won't work really well for that. And Google ads work really well for that. And that presents a great opportunity to do both Google ads and Facebook ads for a client in a 1 + 1 = 3 situation. So like when we work with roofers, for instance, we'll generally do something like this. So we'll get someone into the business using repairs, or they come in through a re-roof. So these are, say, ads, and this is a re-roof, right? So we'll get people in like this. And then if they're a re-roof, we'll use Google ads for this, and we'll use Facebook for this. And the Google ads repairs, they're really good because they're generally pretty cheap, even though they're low ticket service. So this is low ticket. This is obviously high ticket, and the client's probably going to want more of the high ticket stuff. Yeah, there's just less people looking for a re-roof and there's way more looking for repairs. So what we train our clients to do is take this low ticket and convert them to high ticket by going and quoting properly and things like that. So we'll convince our client that actually the best path is to find volume through Google Ads and using repairs. And then we get them to upsell into roofs when the roof repairs, sorry, re-roofs when they need it. For every 5 repairs they do, someone might need to replace their roof. And then you use the roof repairs to fund the whole ad campaign. So we explain to the client that, yeah, you won't make much money on a roof repair if they don't have to do a re-roof, but it helps to pay for all of this up here, right? And then from there, we can get them to train them, or they do it themselves. They get them to high ticket. And then if we do get a high ticket job, that's just cherry on top. So when we work out the ROAS for the client, we base it off an assumption that some of these low tickets, a portion, let's say it's 1 in 5, are going to convert to a re-roof. And that's how we explain it. Now, obviously there's clients out there that will just understand that off the bat, but there's a lot of clients out there that just won't understand why you have to do both. And that's where it's really important to be able to explain the differences between tangible and intangible and consideration cycles. Okay, so that's really it. There's not really much more to understand here. Just remember, tangibles versus intangibles, and long consideration times versus short consideration times. And remember that there's a lot of businesses out there that have blended services, and you can use the short consideration time, high volume stuff to feed the low volume, high ticket, long consideration time stuff. And it works really well. Make sure to join our school group. It's completely free, and we just focus on service delivery. And I take a lot of questions in there and turn them into videos so I can give you a bit more of an elaborate response. Like this actually came from the group. Someone wants to know Facebook ads or Google ads for their client. And I thought, why not make a video on it so I can help everyone? So guys, I'm Jimmy. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next video.